Hey guys, welcome to the Real Estate Jam podcast. I'm JD with my co-host Annabel and Melissa, and we are really excited today to introduce you to some of our friends and fellow mastermind enthusiasts. Hillary and Marco, they own a real estate investment company called Hilco Homes, and they are really awesome people that do a really good job of displaying gratitude, and really they light up every room that they're in, and we should all aspire to be more like that, like them. So I hope you guys enjoy the podcast today, and we look forward to introducing our friends to you.
They don't want what we know out there.
How a person can go from really almost nothing to becoming a millionaire by owning rental properties.
He would always buy these flip houses, and I just remember thinking, this guy is crazy. Why would he buy that house?
In the past decade, there's been a huge surge in the peer-to-peer short-term rental market.
Become an insider, so you have to know the rules before you get the game.
Every second counts, so make every second count.
Welcome to the Real Estate Jam. Whether you're just beginning or the best of the best, we're glad you're here. We will share successes, failures, and strategies for the action-taking real estate investor. And now to your hosts, JD, Annabel, and Melissa.
Hillary, Marco, thank you so much for being with us. We usually like to kick it off with a little bit of intro, tell our audience a little bit about you guys, and then let us know where you got your start in real estate and kind of where your business is now.
Well, thank you again for having us. This was exciting.
Thank you.
Basically, I don't know, do you want to do the history?
You do it.
So Marco's been in real estate investing.
She's the light of every room you were talking about. It's her. So we'll start with her.
He has a lot of these sweet nothings that he throws my way all the time. Marco was the one that really got us into the real estate investing. Before I met him, he was already doing it for several years. He actually started by, obviously, most of our audience has probably heard of Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And he read that book in high school, and it kind of put his mind in the right mental space of like, oh, I need to build my wealth through cash flowing assets and kind of put the liabilities on hold. A lot of people are out there just focusing on their next car, their house that they want to buy, or any type of liability. So for him to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad was really kind of like what put him on the path. And I think he read it again, like later, like in your early 20s. And he ended up joining a company here. I don't know, it's nationwide, right? Lifestyles Unlimited.
Yeah,
it's a nationwide investor group, and the location here in San Antonio, he was so active, just always being there, that they asked him to become an agent to help their investors look for properties. And so he became an agent. All of his clientele was pretty much just investors, and from there, he was really able to learn how to evaluate deals, find good investment properties, what investors were looking for, how they structured the deal, the terms they, used in the deal, all that kind of stuff. So they definitely, he definitely learned a lot from just being an agent. So then he started to do just wholesaling independently, and he wholesaled. This was back when there were no wholesalers. So the competition, there was no such thing as competition back then. And he did so much wholesaling and selling to one company here in San Antonio that they asked him to join as the acquisition manager or the head of acquisitions. So I think at one time you had
9 people,
nine acquisitions, and he basically guided and mentored and just made sure the deals were coming in. And do you want to?
Well, that was about the time frame where Hillary and I got together.
No, we got together before that. He was a wholesaler.
Notice how I said time.
Before you made all this money.
Make sure let's get the time.
When I met him, he was doing the wholesaling before he joined as head acquisitions, and I was like, "What do you do? Is this even legal?" I just knew that I had to go to my full-time job, and I hated leaving or waking up at 6, leaving the house, and I was like, "Okay, bye, see you later." And he's just laying in bed all day, but he's working. Getting to just relax.
I would say all day.
Maybe not all day, but I definitely didn't like.
Period.
I definitely didn't like leaving to go drive through rush hour to go sit at the job that I hated, while he was kind of free to do what he wanted to do and was still bringing money in. So that kind of was my starting point of learning about real estate, the investing side of things. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad very quickly into our relationship, and was on board. I just had to figure out how to get out of my 9-to-5 job. So about the middle of 2015 in July 1st, actually, was my 30th birthday, he proposed, which I wasn't expecting. And then we had our wedding 3 months later. So we had a really quick engagement. And
she
then
locked it in real fast.
I did.
You got to close that deal before there's second thoughts.
Exactly. So we had a quick engagement, and then in the end of September, we got married. And I had already quit my job. I wasn't happy doing what I was doing, even though I was really good at it. And so we had already discussed before my job ended that we would just figure out something, but we would live off of he was commission at the time, but we would live off of that. And it scared me because I was like, I've never not had a job and I've never lived off of a commission. So that was very scary.
Yeah.
And then we went on our honeymoon a month later. This was like the end of October of 2015. And 3 days before our honeymoon, I found out I was pregnant. So I had no job.
It was an all-inclusive honeymoon.
It was. We paid extra for the free booze, and I couldn't purchase any of it.
Oh.
But it's all right. But on our honeymoon, he was actually reading The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. Mm-hmm. And so I was kind of scared but excited because I was done with my job, but like still scared of like not knowing exactly how we were going to make money. Plus we just found out we were having a baby. So I was like, oh my good gosh, there's so many changes happening. We just got married. I quit my job. We have a baby on the way. And then Marco, I'll remember this till the day I die, that he was reading this book by Tim Ferriss, and he put his book down and looked at me beside the pool and was like, I think I should quit my job too. And we'll just do this full time together. Like, oh my good gosh, like so scared, but honestly more excited because we were so busy with our day jobs that we really didn't have a whole lot of time together. And honestly, it was like if I was going to put all of my faith into one person, it was going to be Marco, because he was probably or is the most intelligent person I've ever met. And I knew that he was going to do everything in his power to make sure we were going to survive. Like he wasn't going to let us fail. So I was really scared, but very, very excited.
We're a team.
Yeah.
This is like the rhythm up now.
Yeah. So basically what happened after that, we came home from our honeymoon at the end of October. He put his notice in to be done with his company, the investment company, by Thanksgiving. And then we took the rest of the year to kind of just be with family for the holidays. And structure how we wanted to start the business, and our goal was to take off running January 1st of 2016. So, and
actually, we bought our first property with our new trajectory in life, December 31st, 2015. So we were one day ahead of when we said we were officially going to start.
It was exciting,
and we did it with private money, and it was our first deal.
Yep. And so we've been doing this since then, and we've built Hilco Homes is the wholesaling company. We have like a team of about 10 of us, and that kind of brings in the day-to-day living expenses. Like that brings in the money for us to be able to just live. And the investing stuff with Bella Buyers is really just the long-term portfolio with cash flow. So we kind of do both, or we do both. We definitely do both.
Kind of do both.
Eloquent.
So for people who don't have the pleasure of knowing you guys, you to us are like the private money gurus. And so we would love, that's such a big topic and to investors, is if you could share with us how that journey started.
So, well, we're definitely not gurus, but we definitely have utilized private money, and to acquire our properties for our portfolio, we've primarily only used private money. And really what it came down to was up until that moment where we quit, so we both were jobless, just got married, had a baby on the way. Up until that point, I had done personally like hundreds of deals, but they were all as a real estate agent or as a wholesaler. And I had done like little dabbles of like partnerships, like with my parents on flips and rentals and stuff. But I had never acquired my own property. And I knew with us and the path that we were going on, that was absolutely what I wanted to do. I had always had these mental blocks, which I didn't realize at the time, but in hindsight, I realized were there, that I would rationalize or tell myself reasons why we couldn't acquire our own properties. But now that we were together and we had a child on the way, our life was completely going to change. So at that time, I really just wrote down our goals. And one of the goals was, hey, we need to actually own our own properties. One of the first goals was $1,000 in cash flow. And how can we do it? Well, we don't have the most funds in the world, and we don't have funds coming in that we could rely on. So how can we do it? And the immediate answer was private money. And so really from there, we already knew what our trajectory was. Hey, the beginning of 2016 and going into 2016, we were looking to acquire properties, and we were doing this together, and we're committed. Let me just call down people I know and see if anybody would be interested in lending to us. And that's basically what I did, and that's what we did in the beginning, just reaching out. And our first private money lender is actually a gentleman that I knew from my college days. So a friend of mine who had seen me for years and years and years talking about real estate, being in real estate. I would always talk to them about how they should get into real estate. And he saw just my passion for it, for lack of a better word. And because of that, he was able to have faith in what we were doing. And he didn't have like the most money in the world. He had like, I think 43,000 or something like that. But that was enough for us to do our first deal. Mm-hmm. And so he said, hey, I'll lend it to you. And the agreement we had in its simplest terms was, we'll do all the work. We'll find the deal. We'll do the rehab. We'll find the tenant. That one we sold owner finance, but we'll do everything. You just provide the money and just like sit back and relax. And then we'll split the profits 50-50. And that was our first agreement. And with that, we were able to successfully do the deal, build some confidence, learn from a lot of the mistakes we made. And then we've slowly have transitioned and adapted and evolved to the process that we utilize today.
And we learned more about taxes.
Right.
So we've altered like how we do things a little bit, and now we have more of a structure. But definitely over the 5 years of us doing this, we've, you kind of think you're going to start a certain way, and then you kind of shift a little bit just because with taxes and things you don't know, when you start learning, you're like, oh, okay, so now we have a pretty straightforward plan. We don't do partnerships really anymore. We just straight get lending from people so that we have full control over the deal. Like, he was easy to work with, but when you have a partnership, you kind of have to ask basically permission for everything. So we were like, that's just slowing us down. Let's figure out a way where he just lends us the money as a straight lender. We make full decision. It's within our control. So we've definitely learned a lot. We've also learned like our model is buy everything as a buy and hold for a minimum of a year. At that point, when capital gains taxes go down, then we can either at that time consider selling owner finance. Typically we just sell outright, or we just extend our lease with the tenant if they're a really good tenant. So that's kind of our model at this point. But yeah, it's really just, it stemmed from Marco, one, having the knowledge, but also changing that mentality, that block that was telling him he couldn't do it for so long. And then he really just got to work with calling down. He pretty much locked himself in a room and just called everybody he knew. And we found a couple of people who he's worked with in the past, and they're at that age where they don't really want to be landlords anymore, but they have a lot of money just sitting around. And so it was the perfect partnership for him to lend us the money, and we got his money to work where he didn't have to really do anything. It was really just passive money for him at that point.
As a kind of follow-up question, do you have the lenders secured against the real estate, or have you developed the long-term relationship where they are okay with just doing it as type of promissory note kind of deal?
They are secured by the collateral.
They do a promissory note, but they additionally get their information inputted on the warranty deed with vendor's lien and the deed of trust. Now, those are Texas documents, but both those documents are recorded at the courthouse, and that's how they're secured.
Mm-hmm. No, we've never had to foreclose on anything, thank goodness. But we treat all of our lenders like kings and queens, because like they are going to get paid before anybody else gets paid, before we even get paid. I will never take their money and then not make a payment. So we've never had that issue in all these years paying a payment. We in fact pay really early. I've already paid, I paid April, like around the 15th of March, and I pretty much pay every lender like 2 weeks early, just because I don't want any issues of them receiving payment. If there is an issue, there's enough time still to like resolve that issue and make sure they get it by the 1st. I just don't want them to ever have a bad experience with us. So we really go above and beyond to try and like take care of them.
Yeah, one of the things that you guys mentioned that I thought was really awesome in line with taking care of your investors is your Hilco Homes investor dinner in that thing. Can you guys speak on that a little bit and kind of explain what it is that you guys do at those and you know, how you show your appreciation, that kind of stuff?
Definitely. So we've had two different types of dinners. One was an actual just thank you to our private lenders. We try and do that every single year, and actually our private lenders really look forward to that dinner every year. They come together. We have a 3 to 4 course meal provided and at one of it's a really nice upscale Mexican restaurant here in San Antonio, and it's an open bar. So they get unlimited drinks, which is fun too. And we also hire photography, and we kind of just do like a little presentation of like, this is what all of you guys have done for us. This is what we're looking to do next year. So they're aware and ahead of the game. And then it's really just a big thank you. So that's our treat to them. And everyone comes together. A lot of them know each other already, just from like the past of Marco's investor group. A lot of them do know each other. So it's just a fun excuse to get together and say thank you, just kind of tell them what they've done, what their help has done. And then we also recently just did a different type of dinner for Hilco, which was just teaching people how to acquire private money. So it's separate. It's not for the private money lenders. It's just teaching individuals who are trying to get into real estate investing, learn how they can acquire their own private funds, like how to do the dialogue, what to ask, how to say things, what documents are needed, kind of like what hurdles they might experience, just to kind of help people get familiar with the process. Because there's a lot of people that have asked us, like, how do you get that money? And so we were like, well, maybe we should just have a little dinner and like tell everybody at one time instead of individually, right? So that was fun. That was just like, right, it was like literally the day before San Antonio went like the shelter in place. It was the day before. I was like, oh good gosh, like that would have been a nightmare to reschedule all of that.
Yeah, actually everyone really enjoyed it, so it was a good final hurrah before everything got shut down. And just to kind of reiterate on the original dinner that we were talking about, where we say thank you to our private money lenders, that all kind of stems from the overall idea that you want to treat your lenders with a high level, not only of respect, but just with courtesy and thankfulness and gratefulness for them. Because the reality is, you know, we're going to these private money lenders to utilize tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars, which would take us quite a while to accumulate ourselves. So they're speeding up our progression, but we have to remember that they put in a lot of time, energy, sweat, and tears, maybe years, maybe even a decade or more of time to even cultivate and grow that money. So we want to show them the utmost respect when it comes to that. But then additionally, what we realize is they are lending to us and a very high focus on trust with us, and just in general being invested in us as people. So we utilize those dinners just to kind of update everybody, like what we have going on, what we've done, how did we get to this place, thank you for being on this journey with us, what we plan to do into the future, and how you as a lender can be a part of that future with us, and just kind of paint the picture of where we're going so that they know what to be expecting from us, what kind of deals we're doing, how we're shifting or transitioning, and all those different things. And they really love the atmosphere of, obviously we're paying for their food and their drinks, and that's wonderful, but they really love having the conversations with one another because they're very like-minded in a lot of ways. So they, you know, relationships, bonds are created in those opportunities.
Marco, could you, some of our listeners are new to investing, new to real estate. Could you like share like a typical dialogue that you would have with somebody like that you knew, like friends or family, the first people that you should go to start your private money?
Sure. So I tell everybody the same thing. First, and this is very similar to if you were working as an agent, if you were working as a wholesaler, if you're working as just an investor trying to acquire properties, whatever, all these things start with building a list. In this case, your list is going to be any potential person who you have some sort of connection with. So you want to write down all your friends, all your family members, all your friends of family, people you go to church with, people that old coworkers, current coworkers, people that you went to high school with, you went to college with, pretty much anybody and everybody you can think of.
Basically go down your friends list on Facebook and like make your list. That's kind of helped me, because it's like, I'm like, everyone I pretty much talk to or know is on Facebook, even if I don't have like the deepest connection with them.
Right.
You just never know. So that's a really good place to start. If you're like, I'm running out of people, well, go to Facebook, who you see on a regular basis on social media.
And your brain is naturally, as you're developing this list, is going to tell you, oh, that person doesn't have money, or the last time I talked to grandma, it was awkward, or, all these
but
things.
Grandma has a ton of money under her mattress or somewhere. She's got money.
So your brain's going to do that, but you need to ignore that and just write down the list anyway. Because there are no automatically if you don't reach out. But you need to reach out to at least plant the seed. What you're going to do is call down the list and just tell them what you're doing. So the way you want to phrase it is, the conversation is basically, hey, you probably already know I'm in real estate or want to be in real estate. The people that are your friends and family probably already know that's on your mind, or you're already, considering it, or already active in the world of real estate. You need to talk to them, and then first explain to them what your goals are, what you plan to be doing. Like, what are you trying to achieve within real estate? And the new year is always like a perfect time to do it. Hey, we're now in 2020. Our goal is to get X amount of properties. We're really focusing on cash flow properties, or we're really focusing on acquiring, 3 solid flips, or whatever it may be. And look for any opportunity to present what your new plans are. So right now, hey, coronavirus is happening. Hey, now that coronavirus is happening, we're shifting our portfolio, and we're excited about this new path that we're going to go. Or maybe it's the end of the year. Well, hey, we plan on finishing the year strong with this process. Mm-hmm. Whatever it is, you're trying to paint a picture, okay? And then what you're ultimately trying to do is ask if they want to join you on this journey that you plan on going on. And so in its simplest terms, what you're going to be telling people is, hey, we want to do these deals. We're looking for people that want to participate in these transactions or these deals with us as we move forward, these deals that we're trying to pursue. And then it really comes down to a very simple phrase. Mr. or Miss Lender, if I found the right deal at the right numbers, would you be interested in being my money partner on that deal? ? Silence. And then you just wait for the answer. Don't say anything after that. Try not to stutter in that question. You want to be confident in that question. And then just stay quiet. And they might answer quickly. They might take a while to answer. If they take a while, that's actually better for you. That means they're processing and they're thinking about it. So they're processing the possibility of working with you. And then just talk to them. And then, hey, if they have some concerns, answer them, address them. If you don't have the answers to them, say, hey, actually, that's a good point or a good question. I hadn't thought about that, or I hadn't considered that. I don't know the answer to that. Let me get back to you on that. But simply what you're doing is categorizing all these people into yes, no, or maybe categories. And then you're just going to keep following up. This is exactly what you do when you're talking to sellers. You're reaching out and you're saying, hey, would you sell your house? You ask a question, you're silent. They say yes, no, maybe. And then you have them on a follow-up sequence. And that's what you're doing with your private money lenders. Everybody's in a follow-up sequence.
Even the no's. The no's might not get followed up with for a while longer, but they still get followed up with, because just because they're a no now doesn't mean that in 6 months from now, or, you just never know. They might inherit a property, they don't want it, or they might inherit a lot of money, they don't want it. You just constantly follow up. I mean, I guess unless they tell you to go F off and stop talking to them. But I mean, you still might follow up with them a year later, but you just kind of constantly follow up with these people. And the other thing I would say too is, if you have people that are scared to ask directly for somebody or for money from somebody, there's another good way to phrase it. Just say, do you know of anybody with money? So you're not directly asking, but if it's a deal that works for them, they're going to be like, wait, what about me? Like, that would work for me. So then you're kind of like indirectly asking if that would work for them. But if not, if they really aren't ready for it, they're going to think, well, who else do I know that I could refer?
Do you think that question works better on your own mind or better on the potential lender? Is that phrasing that question that way? Do you think that softens it for them, or is that solely something that's in your own mind that's an invisible barrier that you're able to get over by asking the question that way? Because that is right down the middle one of the problems that I have in regards to private money, and a lot of other things too. But just coming directly out and begging for money and that whole negative mindset piece that I have, I think using that term or phrasing those questions that way helps me get over that really easy. But I'm wondering, from the investor standpoint or the private money partner standpoint, is that question, does that have any different effect on them?
I think I would think that it's going to help anyone who's new to asking for money. Like, that's probably a good way to just start the conversation. And obviously over time, that individual is going to feel more confident, especially if they get 1 or 2 private money lenders, they do a couple deals successfully. I think that in time, they're going to be able to directly ask for money. I think it's a great way to start. I don't think we've ever asked that way. Like, do you know of anybody? I mean, we do now, but it's usually to people that have already lent to us. I don't know that Marco was ever asking indirectly, but it's definitely a good way for anybody new who's uncomfortable asking directly to start. I would assume that once you start going, though, you'll change that conversation because you're going to build your confidence. But it could be helpful for the investor as well, or the potential investor as well, because then they're like not feeling pressured to say no. Right. They might say no, but I have other people, let me follow up with you. So I think it's kind of a win-win for both sides until you become more confident. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
I think, yeah, it's a little bit of both, but it is mainly the person giving the question. It's a way to kind of soften it for you to make it a little bit easier. But the reality is, if you're too soft on this, you're going to have less success ratio. You have to be confident. You know, if you're in the real estate business, obviously you've done deals, you've evaluated deals, who knows the kind of struggles and hurdles and everything you've overcome to be able to do deals, do them successfully, and actually generate profit. If you're just getting started in real estate, I imagine you probably have consumed so much information and podcasts and books and everything else that you're probably, hey, you might not know all the details and maybe you haven't done everything fully, but you're like way more educated than the normal person, especially on this subject or maybe investing in general. And that in itself is something that should be giving you confidence. And people that are lenders, whether they mean to be lenders or not, they have money, and their problem is they're trying to, number one, protect their money. And look at what's going on in the stock market. Things are going down a lot and people are freaking out. So protection is number one. And then number two is like, how can I grow it? And then usually they're trying to grow it in a method that requires the least amount of work for them, which is why a lot of people kind of chill in the stock markets, because you just sit and wait. Well, you're providing a really strong service to these people of not only are they leveraging your ability, your work, your time, your energy, but they're also leveraging your experience and your knowledge base to be able to take money, put it into something, and return more money back. And so with these conversations, yeah, it can be uncomfortable and awkward and different, especially when money is involved, right, in the early stages. But you have to be doing things that are uncomfortable for you to grow. And if you want to become a person who acquires private money to do deals, you have to become that person by doing what that person would do. And that person would ask questions and ask direct, maybe uncomfortable questions initially, to ensure that the information is accurate and full between both parties, and that both of you can jointly move forward in a direction that can be successful for both of you.
That was beautiful.
and
he needed to hear it.
But Marco, also, it's got to be a big mindset shift that you're really helping people in this realm as well. Because if I've got money and it's getting 1% or less, and I can invest that with, making, 6 to 14, depending on the deal, that's a huge win that I can offer somebody else.
That's actually a really good point, Melissa, because one of the other things I was going to mention is that a lot of times we as investors get really intimidated by asking people with money for their money. But the reality is that it's a partnership, because without us asking them for money, they're not putting their money to work. So it's also that mentality, once you get going, it's that mentality shift of like, we're like in this together. They're not above me. I'm not inferior to them because they have the money. It's actually like a 50-50 where they bring the money, we bring the deal. And without one side or the other, the deal just doesn't happen, right? So they need us just as much as we need them, right? So they don't want to do the work. Well, we're here willing to do it. So it's like a beautiful marriage in a sense of everybody, both sides need each other. So instead of mentally thinking, oh, well, they have all this money and I'm scared because I don't, I'm scared to ask for it. Well, you have to, or they're not getting it to work.
Right.
It's a really good thing that you mentioned. I was actually going to mention that.
Guys, I feel like we literally just started and already we're at our half-hour point. So can you tell us formally, kind of maybe what a good structure looks like, or what one of the better deals, or maybe one of your beginning deals kind of looked like, both for you and for your private money investor?
Sure.
Well, when we first started, we were doing partnerships where we would do a 50-50 split. And we did that for our first 2 deals. And then we realized that we need to kind of shift from that model and purely be in 100% control, but also have 100% of the equity, which allowed us to grow better and faster as well. So we transitioned to a model where people that lent to us were strictly lenders. So they acted just like a bank, like Wells Fargo. Mm-hmm. We gave them their 3 main documents, which was the warranty deed with vendor's lien, the deed of trust, and the promissory note. Mm-hmm. And then do you want to go over like the terms of how we structure?
So we basically just find the terms, or that's a negotiation. We give anywhere between 6 and 9.25%. And the one thing we don't negotiate on is our balloon. Our maturity date is we always ask for at least a minimum of 3 years, because with hard money, people really get burned when, like, for instance, the economy's changing and the market's going down, they can't pay that money back. No one wants to buy their house and they're like looking to foreclose. That's really their only option. Whereas if we have a minimum of a 3-year balloon, then we have time in a downturn market to rent it again for another year, kind of ride that wave where we're not forced to make some crazy decision because timing, right? So if we have the 3 years, we rent for a year, and if we needed to, we could just extend to another year of a rental and still have a year left to like sell or figure out what we're going to do. So we always make sure that we will negotiate a lot of things. We don't negotiate that balloon payment. That's just one requirement we won't negotiate on.
That was one of the ways we prepped for all these changes right now. We've been kind of preparing for a lot of these changes. That extended maturity date, which is the date in which we had to pay the entire loan back, being longer, that was one of the things we never negotiated on, and this was the reason why.
And a big part of that's just knowing, like, so we also do a lot of educating and like reading, and we know that obviously everything is cyclical, and back in 2008 when the market crashed, like, it's just, we knew it was coming, it's just we don't know when it's coming. So when we started this whole business together, it was like we've always been setting ourselves up for the next economy crash. And so that's just one of the things we just don't negotiate with. And if that, it typically works for everybody because we're just firm on it. But it's like if the interest rate doesn't necessarily work for them, we'll maybe give them a bonus on the back end, or we just figure out different creative ways to make it work. It's different every single time. What else? Yeah. What other terms?
Yeah, let me just expand just to make sure we answer the question. So we put everybody in first lien position, second lien position, third lien position, depending on the size of the loan and how much money we need to do the project. We ask for, on all the loans, whenever we do a project, we're asking for purchase price, closing costs, and rehab all together in the loan so that we, Hillary and I, don't come out of pocket. That's our goal every time. We have the interest rate. That's a negotiation piece. We'll put what we are asking for, and usually they just take it, but sometimes they try and negotiate on that. Everything is 30-year amortization. We have a plan when our first payment can be, which that's negotiation too. You could technically negotiate and make your first payment 6 months from now, a year from now. Everything's a negotiation. Maturity date, which is the balloon payment when you have to pay everything back, no less than 3 years. We have some that are 5, 7 years.
Wow. We have one right now who just is extending another 24 months because he just really likes the constant money. So especially right now with things being a little unknown, it's just safer for everyone just to keep it going.
A common question is like, how do you get out of the loan, right? Maybe the lender might ask you, or maybe you had that thought process yourself. So there's a few ways you can sell the property. Even like in a high market, great, you sell them. wonderful. That's usually not too big of an issue. But if it's a down market, that's why you need to be disciplined on your numbers, so that if you're low enough on your loan, you still have the room to have that discount, or have maybe there's a valuation decrease that you can still sell it. Refinance it is another option. If it came down to it, if you needed to raise your own money to close it or whatever, you can do that. Another way is having another lender take their spot. So if you obviously raise the money at certain terms, a certain amount on a particular deal, well, it worked for one lender, it likely will work for another lender that can basically refinance the first lender out. Or the last thing is, most of these people are not like sophisticated lenders. This is not what they do day to day. They trust us and they believe in us. So they're invested in us. And a lot of them, yeah, they'll tell you, hey, I want to make sure I get a balloon payment, and I need to get my money back in, X amount of time, because, they want to protect their money. But the reality is, if they can find somebody or someplace they can park it and just get that check and like be drinking their Mai Tais on Hawaii Beach every day, that's what they would do. So they're just like this gentleman she mentioned. He just did a 2-year extension on one of our loans with him, because he doesn't want the money back. He's cool with it.
But we've proven concept to him on so many deals. He's like, cool, let's just keep going. Instead of us giving it back to him just to give it right back to us to find another deal, like it just makes sense at this point to just extend it.
I think that it sounds like it's less about he's cool with just leaving his money out there, and more about he is confident that you guys are going to continually provide a consistent rate of return and that you're trustworthy. And so it's harder for him to find somebody at that level of trust, brand new, or finds a better deal someplace else. It's just not worth the work and effort, because you guys have done such a good job of sticking to your word and following through with the things that you say you're going to do.
Exactly.
Marco, I think you touched on it already with the first, second, and third lien. But what happens when you don't run into rich Aunt May with $200,000 ready to go the first? What happens when you run into, your friends from college and maybe a couple buddies who have smaller amounts of capital to start with?
So then we tell them right out the gate, like, if you have 90,000 or less, you're probably going to have to be in second lien position. It's rare to have just 90 grand and be able to do like a whole deal with 90 grand or less. So we tell them right out the gate. So then we also tell them, because you're in second lien or maybe third lien, depending on how it gets structured and how it falls, you can't be as picky of like what deal you get into. You kind of, not only do I have to find the right deal with the numbers that are right, but then I also have to find, let's say you have 50 grand, then I also have to find the first lien position person that's 100 grand, which that in itself is, maybe somebody has more than that and they want more. So there's a little bit of like puzzle pieces that you got to put just right. So I tell them, hey, I paint what the picture is. I'm always painting the picture of what it's going to be in the future, right? So I'll tell them, hey, you're going to be in second lien and third lien. When I find one that's close, or I know it's probably a good fit with you, I'm going to call you on that one. But if you see one that, hey, whatever, go ahead and raise your hand. Let me know what you're thinking. But when I see one that's particularly a good fit for you, I'm going to call you, and that's the one we're going to have to move on. And that's how I tell them it's going to be.
And all of our lenders kind of trust us. So even if they're not first lien position, they just know they're still going to be taken care of. We have one small multifamily here in San Antonio that we have 7 lenders on. So there's first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 7.
Wow. Yeah.
I just have one more question. I'm sorry. I know we're pressed for time. So Hillary, do you manage all of those notes, or do you have a service?
Right now we do. We kind of have an agreement that until we hit a certain number of units that we will then get a property manager. But right now it's really just not, for the fees that would cost with the property service or property management company. It's just not really worth it because it's not that difficult. We kind of tag team it. So if a tenant needs a repair, he kind of handles the repairs and maintenance, where he contacts his people to go out there. We don't actually do it ourselves. We just call people, and he coordinates it with the tenants and then the vendors. And then I make all of the lender payments every month, which is pretty easy because I just do it all through Wells Fargo bill pay. So instead of me writing checks every month and mailing them all out, which we were doing at the beginning, and I was like, we're spending a lot of money on certified mail every month. So I was like, screw this, I'm going to do bill pay. And now I do it, and it's easy because they send out the checks every month for me. And then, so I send all the lender payments out. And then I also make sure, like, for instance, it's April 2nd. So I've been kind of scanning the accounts just to make sure all of our tenants have paid. And so we kind of also tag team that too, where if they haven't paid at a certain point, then we both collectively will reach out, just depending on the scenario. So there's some tenants that respond better to Marco. There are some that respond better to me. So it just kind of depends. But right now we're doing it ourselves, except for our owner finance note. That's obviously with the third party vendor. But yeah, I currently do it. But once we get to a certain point, we'll look to hire somebody.
Guys, I know I'm inspired. I know I got a list to make once we get off of here, and some phone calls to force JD into. But you guys honestly are an inspiration. Where can people find you, or where should they follow you?
You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Hillco Homes. And by the way, just a little fun fact, which I don't know if anyone really knows. Some people get it, but Hillco, Hillary and Marco, it's like a combination of the two of us, which a lot of people, you'd be surprised how many people are like, oh, I had no idea. Right? It's just kind of fun. He thought
it's pretty much the Brangelina of the real estate world.
Exactly.
Except Hillary gets to be first.
He came up with it. He likes to tell people like I picked the name because it's me being first. But let's get real. Back in 2014, he's the one that came up with the name. I was like, I don't know what to call us. And he was like, how about Hillco? And I was like, oh, that's kind of cute. So anyway, you can find us on the Hillco Facebook page, or even just by looking for Marco Romero and Hillary Romero on Facebook. Definitely connect with us, ask questions. We're always trying to help. So don't ever feel like not just y'all, but like anybody watching this, everyone can reach out and ask. We always try and help and give the advice we can give. I mean, we're not the most, there's many people way above us and doing way more than we are, but, and we don't know everything, but we're always trying to help everybody.
Yeah, so Facebook, we also have Instagram, and we also have a Facebook group called Deep Dive Wholesale, where we have a pretty good sized community where we're always helping each other, not just with wholesale deals, but just real estate in general. And then recently, we both have started TikToks.
Yes.
But you can follow us on TikTok. I'm Marco A. Romero.
I don't remember what Hillary W. Romero, I don't know.
You gotta follow Marco, guys. Go find
I'm going to get my own TikTok just to follow Marco.
Follow Marco and you'll find
our
me.
Dances.
He makes our office, when we were back to working in the office, he made our office do a couple of fun ones. And so definitely follow us. And
I'm trying to make Niall to show up on time. How are you making him dance?
That's right.
You'll see some cute TikTok videos of Marco looking like he's like dancing like this, and I'm like, babe, you're so cute.
I gotta give the teenagers a run for their money on them.
Oh gosh,
it's so
funny. Followers every day.
Yeah, it's just funny just seeing how dorky he can be on TikTok.
That's just real life every day.
Only the best.
Thanks, guys, so much for being with us. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Jam.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all you do.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and updates, check out our website, shorefrontrestorations.com, or find us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Shorefront Restorations. If you have any questions, feel free to drop us an email at info@shorefrontrestorations.com. See you next episode.